What's up, Notre Dame fans? Mike Singer and Tyler Horka here from Blue and Gold with our post Marcus Freeman Monday press conference reaction video. Talk about what Tyler and I thought were the key points from the half-hour press conference. And of course, before we get into today's video, please do hit the thumbs up on this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can get all of our Notre Dame football and recruiting content. Tyler, I think the biggest item to come out of today, and there was injury notes, we'll get to that, but Marcus Freeman was basically asked by a media member, do you regret, in reflection, do you regret starting Tyler Buchner? I mean, those weren't the exact words, but that was essentially the question, and it was in light of how well Drew Pyne has played. And Tyler, what did Marcus have to say?
He said no a couple times in a couple different ways. He said no. Tyler Buchner earned the right to be the starting quarterback week 1 against Ohio State. And for however long he was healthy, obviously you get 4 or 5 games in, and if it looked like it did against Ohio State and then it looked like it did against Marshall, you start thinking about Drew Pyne. But the bottom line here is Tyler Buchner was this team's best quarterback through fall camp. He earned that job in the first week of fall camp, and it had been trending that way, right? Everybody was saying in the spring, or really since Jack Cohn left for the NFL after the end of the 2021 season, that Tyler Buchner was the heir. He was going to start, and that's the way it played out. I think it's because, and Marcus Freeman didn't say this, but Tommy Rees had a vision for what he wanted to be able to do with Tyler Buchner. Tyler Buchner is the more athletic quarterback. He wanted to be able to run some more RPO stuff, and Drew Pyne has run that stuff, but the missing element is with all of those RPOs that Notre Dame is running with Drew Pyne, you never really think, oh, Drew Pyne's going to run this. Now, has he improvised and has he made plays like the flip to Audric Estime against BYU? He scrambled for a first down against North Carolina, and Notre Dame eventually scored a touchdown on that drive. He scrambled for a first down against BYU this past weekend, and Notre Dame ends up kicking a field goal. So he's making winning plays. But all that to say this, hindsight is 20/20. Nobody knew that Drew Pyne was going to do this stuff. Notre Dame had a vision with Tyler Buchner at quarterback. They named him the starting quarterback. They felt confident in that decision. And Marcus Freeman said, look, I'm not going to sit here and say we made the wrong decision, because if Tyler Buchner was healthy, he might still be playing even with some of those struggles early on.
You say all of that, but you make the point on hindsight. But there is coming into the season, I was one of those guys who, I don't think Buchner's going to stay healthy the entire season. He's just –
oh, yeah.
I think that Notre Dame was going to have to run him too much because I was just not a big believer in the passing offense with Buchner. I thought they were going to have to run him and he was going to get hurt. And so I don't think that scenario is maybe ridiculous to look at in hindsight, as well as thinking Pyne could come in and ball. I know you're a big Drew Pyne guy. So am I. So I will just kind of add my 2 cents there as well. And then getting into some injury updates, Tyler. Tariq Bracy obviously had the pick to start the game. Mike Goolsby in our Sunday night show called him Notre Dame's best defensive player all season. What was the update on his injury situation?
Never want to see a guy grab his hamstring like Tariq Bracy did against BYU, because you automatically start thinking the worst. You say, well, he tore that thing and he might be out the rest of the year. You see it in every sport, not just football. But the update is Tariq Bracy only has a grade 1 hamstring strain. He is questionable against Stanford, and that's great news. I don't know if you necessarily need him to play against Stanford. Stanford's not necessarily a world beater offensively, but just the simple fact that Tariq Bracy might be available for that game is big news for Notre Dame.
Yeah, absolutely. You got Stanford and UNLV, so really no need to rush him back, but also games that Notre Dame absolutely can't afford to lose this season and really any season. Howard Cross, a game time decision, left out of Notre Dame's starting lineup, but it does look like good news is around the corner for him.
Yeah, it's kind of like one of those Jarrett Patterson things with him, where against Ohio State, you saw Jarrett Patterson go through pregame warmups and you're thinking, oh man, he might play with that foot sprain. He didn't play. Same thing with Howard Cross against BYU. Went through pregame warmups, tested it. It just wasn't where it needed to be, his ankle. But Marcus Freeman said today that he's expected to play against Stanford and he should be in the lineup. So it's pretty much the exact same thing. He was right on the cusp of being able to play like Patterson was week 1. He should be able to play against Stanford.
And then moving to the offensive side of the ball, Joe Wilkins is a guy who, and I'm going to see if I can find it, has played 13 snaps this season. Someone who's obviously battled injury in the offseason, Marcus Freeman was asked, hey, is he having any setbacks? Is he healthy, or is it really just a coach's decision? So what's interesting to me, Tyler, is that the fan base is very much clamoring for a tall, lengthy playmaker on the outside, and it's the freshman rather than Joe Wilkins, who seemed to have been around forever. So it's like people are kind of forgetting about Joe Wilkins, and it seems like the Notre Dame staff is just choosing, guys like Matt Salerno and Deion Colsey to play over Joe Wilkins.
Yeah, it's tough for Joe Wilkins because I thought going into this season, maybe with the clean bill of health, he would have been a usable target for Notre Dame in the wide receiving core, but it just hasn't been the case. And you go back to that foot fracture in the spring. We were all there. It was one of the open practices, and everybody who saw it was like, man, that might deter the whole rest of the year. And here we are in October. What is that, like 7 months later? Because I think that happened in March, and he's just not the same. He hasn't been able to work himself onto the field. I thought in fall camp he was looking okay. He was moving around a little bit, but it took him like 2 weeks in fall camp just to get on the field and practice. He was kind of running, haphazard like sprints most of the time before that, and it just wasn't working out for him. So at this point, you have to think that all of those injuries have added up, and he's not the same athlete that he was before. And because of that, he hasn't been able to work himself on the field. And Marcus Freeman said as politely as possible, yeah, this isn't a setback thing. This is just him not being able to produce at the wide receiver position.
Yeah, of course, he suffered that. Was it ACL? Was it a knee injury against in Cincinnati last year?
It was ACL. I think it was MCL, actually.
MCL. Yeah, so
it was a big setback.
A guy who I've just had such high hopes for, during the COVID year, was at 2021 in the spring. I just remember Notre Dame sending us those clips of practice, and just thought he looked outstanding in the clips we saw. And
caught a touchdown against Florida State week 1, 2021.
Caught a touchdown, and then the year before in 2020, the Duke game, I thought he was Notre Dame's best receiver in that game. But it's just hasn't been meant to be for Joe Wilkins in his Notre Dame career. Tyler, of course, we'll get Freeman on Thursday, so we'll have you back to discuss that press conference and kind of the updates leading up to that. But just your real quick thoughts on this matchup against Stanford. I believe Notre Dame, and I'll look it up as I talk here, is about a 2-touchdown. I think I even saw it maybe at around 17 points. Yep. 16.5 is where I'm seeing right now. Opened at about 15. So just kind of your early impressions on this matchup.
Stanford isn't any good, and I would expect Notre Dame to cover that spread, honestly. They played Oregon State, who's a decent Pac-12 team, gave USC some trouble earlier this year really well. I mean, Stanford should have won that game. Marcus Freeman actually said that today, that Stanford should have won. I was actually finishing up our magazine duties at like 2:30 a.m., so I had that on the TV next to me, and I'm watching that final drive because, as a football fan, that's what you live for, right? Team has the ball, down one score, see if they can go win the game. And Oregon State just kind of threw up this prayer from 56-yard out, and 2 defensive backs almost like took themselves out of the play. It was bad. Oregon State ends up winning in the final minute at Stanford. So my early gut feeling is Notre Dame shouldn't have any trouble. First home game in a month for Notre Dame. I think they come out and they keep rolling. This offense has looked really good the last 2.5 games if you're going back to Cal. So I think that continues for Notre Dame.
All right, folks, please do hit the thumbs up on this video. Head to blueandgold.com for all of your Fighting Irish coverage. $10 until $10 deal, and that gets you access until the start of next football season. Of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel here, and we'll catch you next time.